We are going to pause on our middle school and high school reopening plans.
A blowback for both parents and students waiting to go back to in-person learning.
DPS explains why middle and high schoolers are still having to wait.
You're not sure exactly what's going to happen.
Plus, new evacuation orders.
It's like our whole neighborhood is burning. Imagine going home and finding the whole block is just gone.
Winds fuel the Cameron Peak fire closer to Fort Collins.
I'm really excited to be back.
And the Broncos hit some highs.
It will be a decision that we'll keep evaluating throughout the week.
And some lows.
I was, of course, upset, but we're also here for him.
And we begin Denver 7 News at 5 with new mandatory and voluntary evacuation orders for towns just west of Fort Collins.
The Cameron Peak fire being fueled by the strong winds on this weather action day. Denver 7 Sean Toll just east of Horsetooth Reservoir.
And Sean, these new evacuations, they just keep coming, don't they?
They just keep coming in. And if you take a look behind me, you can see a number of cars. We've seen hundreds probably go through just in the past half hour, leaving the Horsetooth Reservoir area because now these new evacuation orders are in place. And you can even see, if we go just behind the hills over there, you can see new smoke billowing up. It's not as smoky as it was earlier, but there's still a lot of smoke being brought up because of the winds. And the winds today obviously has been bad for conditions, and there's a number new evacuations, including Masonville, Horsetooth Mountain, Bobcat Ridge Natural Area, and even just recently Laurie State Park, and all of that just in the past few hours. That, along with the other evacuations from earlier today, we've been up here for hours as a number more roads are now closed, including Highway 34 between Loveland and Estes Park. People headed back into the blockades to gather animals and whatever else they could throughout the day. Definitely a scary time for all the people that live up in this area. Now, the Red Cross also opened up an evacuation site at the Embassy Suites in Loveland today. Coming up at 6, hear from some of the evacuees and how they're making it through all of these tough times. Reporting live in Larimer County, Sean Toll, Denver 7.
Golly. All right, Sean.
Thank you.
And I want you to take a look at just how strong the winds are today. So about 9 o'clock this morning, Berthoud Pass clocked winds at 104 miles per hour.
And think about this, that's as much wind speed as a Category 2 hurricane. And the wind speed stayed about 50 miles per hour this morning across areas out west. And those winds, well, you know, they are not any help for firefighters.
All right, let's get details here with Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson. Mike?
Behind me, that is not clouds that would produce precipitation. Those are clouds of smoke. This from our Viero camera is seen in Alt off to the east of Fort Collins. And this is the view of the smoke in time lapse coming into the Fort Morgan area. So we have a lot of smoke coming off this fire. This is the radar loop. That's not precipitation. That's the smoke coming off the fire, moving out across Weld County into Morgan County. Now, the cold front that moved through, that brought the strong winds, has pushed to the south. And as it moves farther east, those winds are going to get lighter, but for tonight we have high wind warnings continuing until sunset in Wyoming, smoke advisories, frost and freeze advisories, fire weather warnings. The current temperatures cooling off now behind that front, and our headlines will have lighter winds later tonight and tomorrow, but more dry weather coming up. There may be a few showers on Sunday.
All right, Mike, thank you. Now let's talk COVID, and not a number we wanted to see. There are now more than 400 hospital beds being used by coronavirus patients right here in Colorado. And while we are still way below our peak bed use at the beginning of this pandemic, our numbers have been steadily climbing for the past few weeks. There are currently 405 beds in use, and there are still thousands available.
And it's those numbers, those increasing numbers, that is now delaying in-person learning for DPS middle and high school students.
Today, Denver Public Schools announced those students will now stay in fully remote learning until at least November 6th.
Denver 7's Megan Lopez has details of that decision. Also, she spoke with parents wondering when the kids will get back inside the classroom.
For months now, it's been the question at the top of mind for Denver Public Schools families. When will students be allowed to return to class? For a while, the answer seemed like it was going to be October 21st, but Wednesday,
We are going to pause on our middle school and high school reopening plans.
another delay. DPS says elementary kids can return along with special needs students and English learners, but everyone else will have to wait until at least November 9th.
It was not an easy decision to make.
The reason? Denver's COVID-19 numbers are trending in the wrong direction.
What we're seeing is a significant spread. The decision was made that there would be considerable amount of disruptions in in-person learning if we were to return.
Parents are disappointed in yet another delay.
You're not sure exactly what's going to happen.
Amelia Powers has a middle schooler and a high schooler. Her daughter is fine with remote learning, but
My son really wanted to go back to school, or he wanted to go in person.
he does theater, which is something that just can't happen remotely. Amelia says she wants her kids to return, even if it's just for a few weeks. But at this point,
I would rather they just say, you know what, fall semester is wash, we're not doing any in person, and let's go from there.
We have to figure out, how do we balance this?
Christina Leone, meanwhile, says all this back and forth is taxing on families. And since other districts are finding a way to return, DPS should too.
Really, I feel like we've been gaslighted. We have been waiting to go back to school, and every time right before we're going to start, there's another reason why we can't start.
The parents say schools are doing great. They just want to know when in-person learning will finally return.
As a parent, I need communication, and I need it to be transparent.
Megan Lopez, Denver7.
And Aurora Public Schools considering going back to full remote learning because of the uptick in cases. The students are currently on a hybrid schedule. The district says it will watch the data and make a decision by next week. Well, instead of one debate, we will get 2 town halls tomorrow night, one with President Trump, one with Joe Biden. NBC announced today the president will be taking part in a town hall on that network. Also tomorrow night, Joe Biden will be in an ABC News town hall. You can watch that one right here on Denver7. Of course, highlights from both later on that night on Denver7 News at 10.
As more early voting sites open up across the U.S., we are starting to get our first ballot numbers and here in Colorado as well. As of yesterday, we know that 5% of all Denver voters have turned in their ballots. That's about 22,000 ballots, which is actually more than double compared to the first 2 days of voting back in 2016. Now, if you still need help filling out your ballot, I know this is a lot of work, just head over to thedenverchannel.com, and there you can find our full 2020 election guide. All right, everybody. Got some good Broncos news and some not so good Broncos news.
Okay, let's start with the good. Drew Lock practiced today. Starting quarterback has been out, as you know, since week 2 with a shoulder injury. Still no word from head coach Vic Fangio on whether he will be good to start this Sunday against the Patriots. Injured linebacker Von Miller made an appearance as well, but he just watched from the sidelines.
And now the bad news. Running back Melvin Gordon was missing from today's practice after being charged last night with DUI. The police report says he was pulled over here in Denver going 71 miles per hour near Spear and 5th, where the speed limit is just 35.
Yeah, I'm disappointed, but you know, my own 2 kids have disappointed me at some points in their life, but I never stopped loving them anymore. And he's one of us. We're going to love him, but there'll be some consequences to this.
And he now faces a possible 3-game suspension. When and if that happens, that's all still up in the air.
Facing lawmakers once again.
Very clear yesterday that isn't what happened.
Judge Amy Coney Barrett faces her final day of questions from the Senate Judiciary Committee, plus working overtime to get ready for a ski season unlike any other.
We're throwing everything against the board right now. No bad ideas.
In a normal year, we would say, absolutely not, man. But this year,
we head to Breckenridge to see what preparations are already underway. And a year-ending blow to round out 2020.